Hi, this is Pat Moorhead, and we are live here in Las Vegas at Splunk.conf 2023. I am here with my incredible co-host, Daniel Newman, and it's not 118 degrees inside here, is it?
No one would know. I've got this vest on.
I know, I've got the coat.
I do have a reputation, though. When
Yeah.
I did have that event in Austin, it was like 109 out, and I still wore the vest. There's something about
I had
making
one
sure.
on too, by the way.
There's something about making sure that everyone knows you got style. I mean, here at Splunk, it's probably a hoodie.
Right.
I don't know, but you know, the security folks. But I don't know, maybe we'll get lucky. We'll have a guest with a hoodie, a guest with a sport coat, and then no one will quite know what to think.
Exactly. So Dan, we've been talking a lot about digital resilience and AKA security, along with your data. We talked a lot about AI, and we've even talked about getting data from the edge and doing meaningful things. So that all pretty incredible topics, and right into our research that we do day in, day out as our company. But let's introduce our guests here. I'm excited to have a big conversation about digital resilience. Matt and Patrick. Patrick, my favorite name.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on the show. First time in the 6.5. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
It is great
Absolutely.
to have you both. It's
Well, I love the two ends of it,
Pat,
right?
Pat and Matt.
Exactly.
Pat
we
and
have,
Matt,
we have
so-
CTO and we have sales. I mean,
Yeah.
come on, this is going to be fun. Let's spice this up a little bit.
Now, Pat, if you know a little bit about this Pat,
Yeah, please
he
tell
likes
me.
you more because it's not really about him, but it's always
It's sometimes about me.
about him.
You
So-
probably know which show that comes from.
Yeah. Yes, I do. Yes,
Exactly.
always about you.
So, gentlemen, maybe a great starting point because we do kind of have the counterpoints, you know, of IT and security. Quick introduction, Matt. Start with you. Tell us a little bit about the work you do at Splunk.
Yeah, sure. I mean, look, for the last 30 years, I've spent probably the majority of my time focused on resilience, but through modernization. Like, there's been a never-ending trail of like how we modernize and get to e-commerce, how we think about modernizing getting to mobile, how we modernize and think about getting to cloud, how we
Yes.
think about modernizing getting to platforms like Splunk, you know, this new AI revolution that we're on the very, you know, kind of cusp of. And so, you know, I've had a lot of executive roles at C-level stuff at Booking, at regulated companies like Newbank, at Citibank. I spent about 15 years at Amazon. Wide variety of stuff, happy to
Right.
talk about any and all.
It's great,
Love
the practitioner lens too, you know, working for the big corps, doing the stuff, and now working as the person selling the stuff or helping to sell the stuff.
Yeah.
Pat?
Yeah. So I lead our technical global go-to-market teams here at Splunk, which includes security, IT, and DevOps specialists, deep domain specialists who work with our account teams to really fuse that expertise into how we work with our customers. Before I joined Splunk, which was about 2 years ago, I was the co-founder and CEO of a company called TrueStar, which cyber threat intelligence management platform, acquired by Splunk 2 years ago.
Congrats.
So, thank you, yes, great to be here. And my co-founder, Paul Kurtz, is somewhere here walking around as well. I know you know Paul.
He was on the show.
Oh, he was, great.
Yes.
So he's fantastic, so you've already got to know him a bit. But before that, I was, before TrueStar, I led security analyst and security operations teams all throughout the Middle East, spent a lot of time in places like Afghanistan, Iraq, Abu Dhabi, Syria, Yemen, but also working with multinational corporations in Europe, Middle East, Africa to build out security operations capabilities. So I guess I'm a security analyst and security practitioner by trade who now leads field tech teams here at Splunk.
No, I love that, and both of you have an incredible amount of experience, which is great, and by the way, experience matters in doing these things, or at least that's what I say, because I have experience too. But one of the fascinating things that I've seen over the past, I would say 5 years, is we used to separate observability and security, and you were actually one of the first companies that aligned observability and security with observability. But I'm curious, what are your points of view? How are those two? How do you look at those two coming together? And Patrick, we'll start with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's two parts of it for me. I guess on the personal experience side, one of the things that I was so excited about when coming to Splunk, you know, and it's tough to part with your baby, with your startup, and Splunk acquired TrueStar, but what I was excited about is the way that Splunk was positioning observability as a security practitioner, because I was seeing from our shared customers these different groups and teams that were starting to knock on the door of the proverbial SOC and say, hey, we've got this data, should we be looking at this together? Should we be collaborating more? And then I was seeing literature like NIST put out a paper about 2 years ago around developing cyber resilient systems that basically kind of kludge together observability incidents and security incidents, saying, hey, at the end of the day, it all rolls up to downtime. It all rolls up to downtime, and that's how it impacts the business, whether it comes from an adverse condition, like a malicious compromise, or whether it comes from an outage in your infrastructure or a performance degradation in an application. The impact to the business at the bottom line level is the same. And so we need to start thinking about our resources and our investments together.
So security became a data problem.
Yeah.
And observability was a way to solve that, and two wonder powers combining to get you to that digital resilience. So Matt, how do you look at the combination of these two coming together?
Well, I think in a lot of ways very similarly. I mean, I view it very much as a data problem. I don't view these, I think historically we looked at these as separate cost centers and entities, and we made different investments about how we felt about one or the other. And the reality of it is the common denominator is data and what you do with it, and the insights that you derive, whether it's operational, whether it's security, and kind of things of that nature. And so I think what you've seen with a lot of the advances, not just in open source, but also in platforms like Splunk and other things, when you can bring that together, harness the power of that data with a very clear strategy, you win on both sides.
That's right, and it's only gotten harder. I mean, I like to look at 30 years ago, and you were looking at gigantic in-memory systems, the applications were there, the operating system were there, the infrastructure is all in one place. And now we have the fractalization, right? We have infrastructure everywhere. We have applications that are no more monolithic, they're based on APIs. So the security problem, as we fractalized everything out there, has just gotten extraordinary and quite frankly impressive.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting though that we still see from a budget, from a decision making, from a board level, that security does get somewhat siloed. It's CISOs and CIOs working in different silos some of the times, not actually marching down the same path. Like I said, boards have long weighed the difference of spending just enough to not get breached, which means they're going to get breached, if that's the approach. So it's not over investing, even though there's a double-digit % valuation loss that comes with a significant cybersecurity incident. So, there's a lot of consternation at the C level. Matt, you wear a C title.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll check with you first. CTO, in the field, probably working closely with a lot of CTOs, CIOs of clients. Talk a little bit about this very thing, and how should these folks that are actually being pushed by the board, pushed by the customer to make sure data is secure, resilient, how should they be thinking about this right now?
Well, I think, look, the mileage it varies by company. Some groups are very functionally organized, where there's a great distance between product and engineering and security and other roles. You've got other organizations that have built cross-functional teams where their architecture more closely aligns with the kinds of things that they build and own. I firmly believe, as someone who's owned a lot of product and technology, you want those cross-functional teams, you want to have end-to-end ownership, and what that means is they think about it, not just the go-to-market of the customer. Did I get a new customer? Did it make me money? Did it save me money? Am I retaining that customer? But all the way down through that service and how it operates, and is it secure, and the risk and impact of a breach. And so therefore, when I make the CEO of that domain or business, I want them to think through and be part of their plan and their investment. They need to worry about those things, not security off to the side and the business systems kind of manager. There's a level of that also needs to be provided, but it needs to be ingrained in the culture, and it needs to be ingrained in the thinking of the product.
So a lot of people at this show in particular probably understand why visibility is so critical to IT operations and things like security, but Pat, I'd like to hear from you first. Can you explain, maybe in simplistic terms, or maybe people who aren't fully understanding, or maybe people who aren't customers, why visibility is so important to this?
Yeah. I mean, look, with every major technology wave that kind of rolls through the enterprise, what happens is you see this evolution and often expansion of the attack surface area. So the move to desktop and to mobile created this whole new attack surface area around devices that didn't really exist in the past. Then you have the move to the cloud, and that changes. I mean, if you think about what incident response looks like back when I was doing it 15 years ago compared to what it looks like now with cloud assets, I don't even know if I'd be able to keep up.
Right.
It's a totally different world today. And now you think about artificial intelligence, and how does that change the attack surface area? Well, does it bring new critical assets like training data sets that hold very important IP now for enterprises? We weren't talking about protecting these critical assets 2 years ago.
Right.
Those weren't even in the attack surface area.
Right.
And so part of the challenge of security operations and security leaders is this never-ending rat race to keep up with the ever-expanding attack surface area. And that's where you need tools that bring you visibility. And so, as a pure security operator, I hear observability and I think visibility into my cloud native assets that I really need more and more of over time.
Yeah, Matt, you add something if you'd like,
I
please.
would love to build on it. I 100% agree with what you're saying. And I think, look, visibility in this information, in simplest terms, it helps companies make more informed decisions. If you don't have that visibility, you're flying blind, you're prone to errors and mistakes, your time to respond, your time to think is longer in that. And I think what you're going to see right now is that, we hear a lot about the AI hype and both good and bad, in one way, shape, or form. And I think what you're going to see is a lot of it on the cusp is trained on public data. There's a lot of stuff out there that can help, with that from a security or other perspective. But I think when you take your own internal platforms, like a Splunk, you take your data, you train on it, you open it up to incorporate and work your other models kind of through it. Now you have the power to accelerate, like your mission hasn't changed.
Right.
I still need it to be up and secure. These tools allow me to actually work much faster and better, right, when I develop and hone those things.
All right, look, I characterized, the fractalization of IT, and it's funny, we think, oh gosh, where else could this go?
Yeah.
Heck, you guys made an announcement today that put an actual device in areas where there isn't a lot of digital data, right? And if you look at, we like to call fancy things, Web 4.0, right? It's really digitizing the warehouses, the factories. By the way, every car that's on the road, and we have wireless technologies today, even like 5G and massive MIMO, that is going to put a data producing element, tens of millions, if not billions of them. It's going to make smartphones look like child's play. So I think this challenge and this issue is only going to exacerbate once we light up. I mean, it's a big number.
Yeah.
I joke, when you get into the hundreds of billions of endpoints, it kind of gets ridiculous, and it's a lot. So this is just going to continue, and it's super exciting, I think.
Yeah, I would just say I completely agree with that. I think what's exciting about this concept of digital resilience, just in listening to customers over the last couple of days, is, what's the next frontier of digital resilience? We talk a lot about the consolidation of engineering, IT, and security and shared data. But if you go and talk to a retail customer today, where they've had a massive shift of their business from physical brick and mortar stores to e-commerce, they're talking about the next frontier for them with digital resilience is really about fraud, right? And then if you go talk to a manufacturing customer, they're talking about the next frontier of where they really need to move is OT environments, right? So I'm excited to see how this concept of digital resilience continues to be a unifying banner, kind of a rallying cry that brings together the necessary resources inside the enterprise to hopefully drive better outcomes and resilience.
And by the way, every one of those new endpoints that has a CPU, a mini operating system, and connectivity is a potential breach point. We have more of those out there. So, and it's, with that much more data coming in, visibility, again, more paramount. I think we're all going to be in business and have a gainfully employed for a long time here.
So let me spark a little bit of a debate. It's great that we're all, there's a big love fest here.
Slapping each other on the back.
Everybody agrees about everything. I'm
Matt,
good.
Pat,
I got this.
You can do that
I got
too.
this. But
okay.
no, I mean, seriously, I've kind of asked you, we've had you role playing a little bit. Clearly, you both have security and IT backgrounds, but where's there some disagreement in the security and IT? Is it about going fast versus being really safe along the way? Like, because obviously these companies are under pressure to grow, they're under pressure to be, like, it can't all be kumbaya. There has to be some disagreement.
Where's the friction?
Well,
Please.
So, I mean, look, to me,
don't be so nice about it. Just go.
Sorry. Yeah, you go.
I'm kidding.
I'll start with like one piece. I think we are on a continuum between what I would call supervised and unsupervised learning when it comes to intelligence. And where humans are involved, supervision is involved. And it's because when you think about the amount of data that's out there and the importance of severity, when you talk about security incidents and the need to be right, or financials, people's money, you need to be right. And so sometimes at this stage, we can't fully trust yet the computer to be unsupervised and do 100% of those things. And so I think we will actively debate the bias, the accuracy, the maturity, the need for supervision, the need for some of those things.
Right.
By the way, we should pursue all of it carefully, right, and aggressively test our way into it. But I think those are some of where you're going to start to see potential regulators get, all kinds of opinions get thrown in the mix.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree with that, but in the interest of being a little controversial, I would say, we still have different cultures. If you look at security and DevOps, or security and engineering, engineering, software development, move fast and break stuff. Security, skepticism, trust but verify, go slow, be thoughtful. And so I think that kind of friction still exists at the people level and culturally sometimes in organizations, especially large ones.
Right.
But if you allow me to be a little positive about it, what I think is really fascinating is as these teams are coming together, I think security operations can learn a lot from DevOps. I think we can learn a lot from the movements around, toil and the way SREs talk about reducing toil and what does that mean in the SOC and how do we leverage automation in our workflows the same way the SREs are. So I think we're going to learn more from each other and that will help us come closer together.
So as we come to the close here, and thanks for playing the game. When we get off stage, they can all hug it out. I digress. But observability has become really in vogue. It's a combination of a little bit of a marketecture and a really important technology at the same time, the way it's being talked about. What are you seeing in terms of how observability is sort of driving home and helping solve this speed? Because it seems like the biggest problem for most companies is they're not catching things fast enough. It's very reactive. Observability is one of the keys to getting proactive, isn't it? Getting on the front foot. Talk a little bit about how observability really drives faster incident reaction response to be able to be more proactive on the security front. And Pat, I'll have you take that one.
I'll go quick and jump in, but we're seeing more and more that an incident is an incident is an incident. It's often difficult to tell whether it was an outage in your infrastructure or some sort of misconfiguration in an application, or whether it was a DDoS attack. And companies are often sort of smoke jumping incident responders into it before you know actually whether it's a security, IT, or an engineering issue. And so because of that, I think visibility becomes critical regardless of whether it is a malicious compromise or an adverse condition. And visibility into infrastructure, services, and applications.
That's right.
Regardless of whether it was a malicious compromise or it was a misconfigured app or whatever. So that's what's really driving the proactivity, is you can't get proactive if you can't see it.
Yeah, I can't agree more. And what I'd say is like the challenge that I see with a lot of companies is when you stitch together, there's a lot of beauty in open source and a lot of different things, but the more of these solutions you stick together to get to finite solutions, it gets more difficult to get to a clear, trusted, single pane of glass that you can bring the right people together to diagnose and run through those things, because you need to be able to trust and be informed to make better decisions kind of about those things. I think the other thing I'd say is like people are going to move further up the stack, meaning it's not only the logs are logs and logs are incredibly valuable and we get a lot of information like out of that. I think increasingly over time, in the same way you're going to see people moving further up into the code to try and detect those things earlier with the use of AI, with the use of other capabilities.
Gentlemen, really appreciate your time. Good conversation about digital resiliency, rethinking it a bit, looking into the future, but also keeping grounded in the presence. And it was great to see from a CTO point of view, Matt, thank you, and from a go-to-market sales point of view, Patrick, I appreciate that. So thanks for coming on the show. We'd love to do a check-in in a few months as well.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Lots of fun, guys. Thanks.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot.
So thanks for tuning in to the 6.5 on the road at Splunk.conf here in Las Vegas. Hang in there, tune in there. We're doing about 8 different videos and interviews. And hit that subscribe button if you like what you heard. Thanks a lot.